Hi, I'm Rebecca Downs, original music artist from Birmingham, UK. Welcome to Series 3 of my podcast, Downs Your Way, in association with Blues in Britain magazine. For further details of me, the magazine, my guests, please follow the show links. In a change to the advertised programme, I had the chance this week to catch up with Paul Long, producer, radio host, and original musician. As a result, I bumped manager Colin to next week's show. Paul has a long and successful track record in the music business, including a major stint at the BBC, where he was a producer on several notable shows, including Paul Jones. About the same time as I started on the scene, he was setting out with the band Catfish, in which he played alongside his eldest son, Matt. They were making good progress when COVID hit. Then in the aftermath of that, first Paul, then Matt suffered serious health problems. Paul recovered from his conditions, but very sadly, Matt passed away last year, a loss that reverberated across our scene. After a lot of thought, Paul decided he wanted to contribute with original music and has formed the band Burning Rope with other former members of Catfish. They have a new album out next month, and there's a link in the show notes. Here's what he has to say about the drums. Right, hi everyone. Today we have got quite a prestigious person with us. We've got Paul Long, who's been on the blues scene, well, he will tell you, for a couple of years. Should we say that, Paul? Just a couple?
Yeah, it's been a little while. Yeah.
Tell us about yourself for the listeners who've been living under a rock.
Well, I'm a musician and a producer, broadcaster. I spent a long time at the BBC, and whilst I was there, I produced things like all live music on Radio 2 and Six Music and the In Concert show. And I produced Paul Jones's Blues show for many years. And since leaving the BBC, I've just gone into playing and producing music full time in various bands, including Catfish for a long time, for 10 years, and my new band, Burning Rope. And I do an internet radio show every week as well.
So basically, I'm the amateur here. I am the amateur on this podcast because, this is just me sort of burbling along, but Paul is the actual professional. So, we need to keep that in mind today. He'll keep me on my toes, I'm sure. So we've been having these chats with artists and people on the scene, promoters, agents, managers. So we start broad. Sort of, how would you describe the health of this grassroots? I'm going to call it grassroots, even though a lot of people don't like that, but I think it is blues and rock scene in the UK right now. Like, what's your take on it?
I don't mind that phrase at all. Grassroots, yeah, it's a good phrase for me. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it seems like there's never been more young players. There's no shortage of young players or young artists, but their mates don't come to their gigs. And that's one that we need to solve somehow. I'm not quite sure how. I mean, for me personally, the last 5 years has been very tricky for health and other reasons. Before that, we'd spent the best part of 10 years building Catfish up into quite a big band. And then we obviously got waylaid by the pandemic and health. And now it's interesting starting from scratch, really. I mean, the interesting position of somebody who's been around for years, who's now playing on introducing stages again. So although you've been around for many years, if you start a new project, it doesn't mean that everybody's heard of it or knows you. And it's interesting. It really is feeling like starting again. And it feels harder this time. It feels harder to get the gigs. It feels harder to draw audiences out. Again, that may be just because we're a new band. But I get the feeling generally that people are finding it harder to get people to commit to come out and buy a ticket in advance and come to a gig. Or they'll say, oh, I wish I'd known that was on. And you feel like all you've done is annoy people for weeks on the internet about this gig that's coming. Oh, I wish I knew it was on. So I don't know. There's a lot of things going on here. I think reluctance of some people to come out again, the age of the audience. And the fact that a lot of venues now are finding the only way they can keep going is by booking tribute bands rather than original bands. And
Mm.
I've always wanted to play in original bands. I don't mind if fewer people come and see me play, but they're seeing me play my music.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I've been in cover bands, when I was just a smidgen younger. But it's always been original music. That's the reason why I sing and that I'm in a band is because I want to sing my own music. It's always been like the base of everything. So I totally understand that. I think like the new band thing is like a really interesting perspective because I think like I don't know, but I think Catfish kind of came on the scene around the time that I did. I think it was sort of like maybe 10 or 11 years ago, something like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
was, we were probably doing stuff, obviously before that, but um and the new band thing then I thought sort of had a little bit of push behind it. It felt to me anyway at the time that being a new artist kind of gave me a little bit of a push in comparison to releasing albums now. But it's interesting to note your take on that, that starting a new band again. And from that perspective, it's like, it's become this kind of maybe sort of not, you don't really get that push anymore.
It, I mean, maybe I've overstated because there were also venues and festivals like Colin and Upton who booked this new band without us having played a single gig. And I guess that is just on the reputation of Catfish. And that's great. Then you have to go and prove that you are a good band in your own right. So maybe you can get that first gig. Um, so the promoters might have heard of you or know your background, but the audience doesn't necessarily. Um, I think it's harder to get people's attention these days. I think there's so many other demands on people's time and energy and money, that's harder. But having said that, I'm really enjoying uh, being in a new band again. It feels fresh. I mean, it took me a long time to decide I wanted to play again, and then in the end, you're a musician, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
But having decided it, yeah, we've gone into it full tilt, and the album's finished and about to come out, which I think will help us actually, having some music that people can then get familiar with before
When
they
is it
come to the
out,
gig.
Paul? When is it out?
11th of October.
11th of
Yeah,
October, folks.
yeah,
And
yeah.
is
We're
that
doing
out from your website or is it out from everywhere?
it'll be out in all the usual places, really. There's a pre-order going on the website at the moment, and we're launching it at the Cranley Arts Centre in Surrey, which was a local gig for me here. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a good one.
Yeah, it's I think having the material definitely helps. Although I think you're right about like there's so many things pulling people in different directions. I mean, you said a lot there on your opening sort of question, but there is a lot of things pulling different people, isn't there, nowadays? And that with maybe like the age of the audience sometimes, and as you say, trying to get kind of younger people even to come and see a younger band that's got the term blues attached to it is sometimes quite
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah. But we used to say, if somebody calls themselves the Something Blues Band, we used to say, well, good luck with putting that commercially suicidal name on your band. Because I think sometimes blues gets a bad name. You can wander into a pub on a Saturday night and hear somebody playing what is supposedly blues, and you think, well, no wonder people don't want to go and pay money to see this if that's what they think it is. Um, so I mean, there's a place for traditional blues. It's not me. I can't sing about cotton plantations and those struggles. Everybody has their own struggles, and I think really for the music to evolve and survive and not just be a museum piece, you have to sing about your own struggles, your own things going on in your own lives, and that will strike a resonance with other people who've been through the same things. It'll annoy people who just want to come out and hear traditional blues, but there's plenty of that around too.
I've annoyed a lot of people, so I totally, and I don't think I've ever really said I'm traditional blues, but I know what
Right.
you mean. I think if I say blues to my uni students, they just go, "Oh, my dog has died and my woman just left me," and they just say
Exactly.
that to me. I'm like, "No, no, like there's lots of different, but it does seem to have that kind of tag, doesn't it, attached to it,
Mm.
which is, well, but the evolution, I think, is really important. What you just said is such an important statement because, I remember seeing a band, I'm not going to say their name, but their name was appropriating Black culture in a way that wasn't great. They didn't live in an area, like you say, they'd never picked cotton. And the name was kind of like, oh, no, 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 no. Like if you're from Hampshire, maybe write about the things that are important to you and call yourself a name that's kind of relevant to you. So totally the evolution. Do you think the venues like slash promoters, do you think they play a role or could play more of a role in getting more younger audiences?
Oh, I'd talk about younger, but audiences generally, I think sometimes it's quite amazing to turn up at a venue and there seems to be no poster with your band on it, and on their website or their social media, you can't find yourself on there. So I'm not sure how sometimes how much old-fashioned promotion venues do, because that does work with their mailing lists and what have you, and maybe they do. But sometimes you get there and there's no real evidence that you're on that day or there's a poster up for you. It is variable, that though, to be fair. And I don't know, but the getting the kids there, kids, younger people, I think if the schools um, could try and the blues in the schools thing that they do in the States seems to work very well. I know there's people here who do educational music too, but I think if some venues could do a link up with a local school and maybe do cheap or even free admission to some gigs or put on the school bands as well and get people into that mindset of live music being a thing that is part of their lives. Because certainly when I was young, that was all there was. Music meant everything to you. You may have only had 10 LPs and you knew them inside out. Bob Ludwig mastered it and it was recorded at the record plant or whatever. You knew all those things. And now there's so many other demands on young people's lives and their interests that I think some live music is not necessarily right up there on that lead. So I think what they can do in the schools and colleges and try and get some of these links going would be helpful.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I know a lot of more guitarists, I would say, that I'm sort of in the vicinity of as students that are, they're interested in blues and they've been kind of introduced to it. Blues rock, probably more than blues,
Mm,
by their
yeah.
father, etc., etc. But the venues around Birmingham are probably more catered to if they're focusing on that age group, kind of different types of genres. And I think the blues venues, maybe from my perspective, maybe sometimes could be made a little bit more appealing as well, sometimes. But I know it's tricky because you're trying to manage like different demographics of audiences.
And I think for a lot of the young people today, hip hop or rap is their blues. That's the music which tells stories about their lives, which they can relate to. So again, it's the old thing of not keeping the music wrapped in aspect, so that it does evolve. So I find really exciting people like Fantastic Negrito or Gary Clark Jr. who are really doing some things, but you can see they're rooted in the blues, but they're doing something more modern and appealing with the music, and still
Absolutely.
telling stories that can hook you up, hook you in.
Absolutely. I mean, you were literally singing off my hymn sheet. And I just think mm, there's still like a cadre of people who are maybe quite pushy or kind of make themselves quite visible on social media. I know I've had, you're not blues when I've won,
Mm.
UK Blues Award, and you're like, okay, no, I'm not. I'm not traditional blues. So if that's what you want, I'm not. So maybe we need to like free people's minds a little bit to like open it up a little. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when that audience does latch onto you, though. I mean, it happened to us early on with places like the Tuesday Night Music Club and other audiences that like the band. And one of my favorite reviews of Catfish was it said they're too rocky to be a blues band and too bluesy to be a rock band. Oh, well, that's fine. I'll take that. But somehow, and I would cite a band like Brave Rival, who were taken under the wing of this same audience. Now, they would never say they're a traditional blues band, but if that audience likes you,
Mm.
they'll stick with you. And it's becoming now me and more about. I hate the word fans. To me, the audience of people that nowadays you can do what I could never do an audience member years ago. Go and meet the band and talk to them, and that's become such an important part of every gig now. Is the coming out afterwards or in the interval if there is one. This talking to everybody, this community that we've got going is a very very precious thing to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think, well, yeah, again, absolutely agree with you. If people do latch onto you from that community who are actually live gig goers, it
Yeah.
is a more symbiotic relationship and it does cement a real close relationship between the band and the people. I mean, I too hate the word fans. I mean, it's a derivative of fanatic, and which I think is awful. And I hate the word followers because it reminds me of a cult. So it's
Mm.
just like I just call them, friends.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah. Well,
that.
they do become friends. They do become friends, and it's over the last 10, 11 years of playing bands full time, this has become very important. I've made what are now really good friends. I had people who just came to a gig and came and chatted. That's been very important.
Yeah, it's that sense of community, isn't it? And do you think like because I mean I know I think you do too. I'll let you answer, but I think the social media aspect as well kind of it's it takes a lot of time, the social media kind of side of things, but it does help cement and connect that relationship when maybe people aren't gigging all the while or they're not, it keeps that connection going. I mean, how important do you think that is to like building that sense of community?
I'm sure it is, and I'm sure I should be doing more of it. I do try, but I know I should be doing. But there's so many. Well, not in this genre, but if you are a young female pop singer these days, you are spending more time on TikTok than you ever do making music. And I can't be doing with that. It's got to be about the music to me. The telling stories that way. I know it's got to be publicized, and the social media is a way to do that. But it also seems to weaponize people, and their opinions are really blown out of all proportion sometimes. We used to have a guy in Scotland who was a catfish, well, Matt and me in particular, a troll, and used to write some really hideous, hateful things. Um, and years ago, somebody would have just said, "Oh, there's a guy in Scotland doesn't like your band," and you go, "Oh yeah," but because they've sit behind a keyboard and this all gets blown up. So it's not always a very healthy community on there. I think most of the people we're talking about in the circles that we move in are good, are really good people, uh, but it certainly can get out of hand from time to time. And I've seen artists spend so much time and money on social media, and the music gets neglected sometimes because of it. So it works
I
both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think what's really bizarre about social media is the fact that somebody like you've just said, like that guy, can just somehow take offense at what you're doing, what I'm doing. Spoken to Chantel, many others, they all say the same. And you'll get pounded, and you just think, I'm not Adele. I haven't got a cadre of people that are doing all this for me. If you
Mm.
don't like it, maybe move on to something else.
Well, that's what I was
No,
doing. Not everybody's not going to like every type of music or every band that's out there, me included. But I don't sit on the internet and say this band is terrible. I'll just go, that's not.
not for me.
I wouldn't say anything. I'll just go, listen to something else. Um, so I can never work out why some people get all that energy going about things they dislike so much and feel that they're empowered to say it so much so loudly.
Yeah, it's quite bizarre, isn't it? You've got, the juxtaposition of social media is huge. Like, I know you've got your we don't like the word fan, but
Mhm.
group
No.
on Facebook, and the group on Facebook, we've all got them, for people that come to us to collect in. And they are, as you say, the most wonderful group of people that are supporting a myriad of artists and
Oh yeah.
bands in this
Yeah.
scene. But
Yeah.
then, I mean, I haven't been able to afford to do many adverts on social media, but whenever we have, that's when the trolls come out. So I'm kind of glad I haven't got the money to do that, really. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe I should just leave that alone. But you mentioned like the financial aspect of that as well, then, because I think, that's something else that I've been talking to people about, and I will say this, I'm like a repeating machine, but I'm not putting down anyone that spends a lot of money or has got the money to spend on promotionals or whatever, you know, go forth and be happy. But there is a huge amount of money that goes into launching an album, launching a new band, and it's just kind of, I think as well, that kind of, when you said about launching a new band, that does have a lot to play with the raising of that profile as well. I mean, how are you finding that?
And I guess we're lucky with the recording thing. I mean, with this band and with Catfish, what we would do is a couple of days in a studio, just recording the live tracks with the drums in a really good drum room. And then everything else, the overdubs and mixing and mastering, everything else gets done here. And so there's no cost to that side of it. So on the other hand, it means the good thing about having a budget is it makes you finish on time. Uh, we can and do spend far too long sometimes here going over and over stuff or getting it just so. Where if you were paying for it, you would say, right, time's up. That's it. Let's put it out. So that works both ways. But our recording costs are very low, so that really does help. But I think if I were a young person now trying to be a full-time musician, I would find it so hard to earn a living and have somewhere to live. You need to have quite a diverse portfolio of stuff, I think, these days to even try to get that going, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm always saying that to the students, you need a portfolio of careers that
Yeah.
you're
I mean,
involved in.
maybe you do need your function band or whatever it is to pay for your original band. Some sort of economy has to has to work to keep you afloat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say that I'm always honest with them. I hope they appreciate the honesty, but it's not that lottery ticket win anymore with somebody walking in and going, "Hey, I'm gonna sign you guys," and it's all,
Yeah, I'm not sure it ever has been though, really. I think when the record companies were the gatekeepers, you had to be of a certain level to get through that gate into a studio, which you would have to because you couldn't. There was no way of recording an album at home. The only way was to go through a record label. Now that's no longer the case, and you could argue that far too much music is released, and there's hundreds of thousands of tracks released every day. They're never going to see the light, see the light really. But I think it's always been a very, very tall pyramid where at the top there are a very small handful of people who are making a lot of money, and everybody else is either a working musician or broke. I don't think that's really changed. It's just the very, very top of that pyramid that you read about. And of course, they are making a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to share it actually, but I haven't yet on. some figures the other day that said an artist would have to have, and they just picked Spotify because it's the one we'll talk about because it's got the figures right in front of our little faces.
Mm.
You'd have to have over 500,000 monthly listeners to be making a minimum wage if all that money was coming to you and not split between a record
Yeah, I
company and
heard a
all the rest
similar
of it.
thing. I heard a similar thing on a podcast. They'd worked out that if your only source of income was Spotify and nothing else, to earn a minimum wage, the first artist that would earn that minimum wage was Alison Moyet.
Yes, I was watching the same thing for.
Yeah, the same podcast, I think. But yeah, so that's and then of course she's a heritage artist, if you like, who's got all those hits from the 80s and 90s where actual money was coming your way to fall back on. And so bands with that sort of catalog from the 70s, 80s, 90s, which the labels are exploiting to death now, they're still earning a lot of money. But the grassroots I mean, I hate Spotify. I don't even have Spotify. We put our music on there, but I don't listen to it mainly because it sounds so bad. I don't want music to sound like that. I tend to go with Apple Music where I can listen to lossless quality files. Uh, I'll harp on about one of my things as a producer. Really, more or less every invention to do with sound over the last century or more has improved the quality of the sound you listen to. The 78 went to the LP, the 45 to the CD, and now MP3. All of a sudden, sound is getting worse again. It sounds terrible. Whereas movies and TV, the quality goes up and up and up. 4K, 8K, 75 mil before that. Everybody wants better quality of that, but music, yeah, it doesn't matter what that sounds like. And I think that's partly to what I was saying before about how music was everything to us as kids. And now it's a lot of background. And there's an awful lot of background out there at the moment, I think.
That's such a fantastic point that you've just made, Paul. And it was the same for me growing up. That CD, that album was devoured, from start to finish, and the sound of it, I'd try it on speakers and I'd try it on headphones and I'd be wanting to listen to every nuance that music created. And I think as well, coming back to iTunes, also iTunes actually pay the artists more than
Yeah,
Spotify does, which is a
yeah.
really important point that I don't know if people are aware of. Also, it doesn't flaunt the figures and in front of your face so that it encourages artists to try and buy playlist promotion and all the rest of it. It's a much
Yeah,
healthier environment, isn't it?
I
Really?
think so. And its playlists are curated by people, not bots. So all those things do make it healthier, I think. Yeah, and also on Spotify, if you have the free version, which I guess a lot of kids will do, the sound is even worse, and it gets interrupted by adverts all the time. So their experience of listening to music is not what we would say used to or expected, really. But YouTube is even worse. YouTube sounds the worst of it all and pays less than anybody else.
Yeah,
I mean,
nobody.
none of it is life-changing amounts of money to an artist like me, of course. But at least they do pay a bit more. Yeah.
No, it's very true because, YouTube sort of seems to get away with not taking much flack, but actually it should be taking a lot of flack. You have to have you have to have your music on there again to try and reach people, but the payment back from it is, well, I don't know, probably less than this tissue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the younger demographic, because they're on YouTube more than any other platform for anything. It's for TV, film, music. But of course, the expectation is that it's free. And that tends to lessen its value. So I think one thing we're trying to do really, we do put out a CD because let's face it, musicians want to make albums even if the public doesn't want to listen to them in that way. We still want to make that statement. So if you're going to try and sell a CD, it has to be worth buying. So we're trying to develop quite a nice package to make it at least worth the purchase. It may be like me, I've just got a new, well, not a new car, but a different car, hasn't got a CD player in it, first time ever. So on a drive, I'm going to be listening to album music, and there's no information about anything about the music, which to me was important. I guess that's as a producer and a broadcaster as well. That kind of stuff is, you know, that's knowledge that I want to soak up all the time. So it's different. But and also, you can't sign an MP3. People like sign like you to sign things for at the end of a show. So one thing we're coming up with for the new album is I think it's going to be literally going to be a beer mat. And on the beer mat will be a QR code, and it'll take you to a website, not one of the streamers, but to a website where you can download a copy of the album.
That's
So
a fabulous idea.
yeah, so yeah, you can't play a CD in my car anymore, but I could play that. And on that download site, we're also going to have a nice document which tells you the lyrics and the songs and what they're about and who played what and where it was done. All that stuff will be there if you want it as well. So even though you're having it as a digital package, it will still have some of that information there for you.
That's a fantastic idea, and you are right. And people who do support this scene do still buy CDs, vinyl's obviously a lot more expensive to produce for artists. And they do support us in that way with the buying of the t-shirts and the merchandise, and they do want something to sign.
Yeah. Oh, they'll
And
buy
to,
a CD even if they don't have a CD player. Because, like me, I'd buy a CD of a band I go and see. I won't necessarily play the CD. I might play it off Apple Music, but I've got the package and I want to see the artwork and I want to see what the whole statement, what it's all about. And also, it helps
okay.
you support. It helps you to support them as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we did something which Colin, the manager, my manager came up with his, he's pretty good at ideas like the beer mat idea, came up with a lyric book. And you know what? Loads of people bought that lyric book
Yeah,
because you
that's
can't, you
interesting.
trying to
Yeah,
squash them on a little CD is kind of hard for people to read.
yeah,
And with
that's a
the
good thought.
stories behind the story of the song on one side and the lyrics on the other. And so it is important, isn't it, to the people that come to our gigs. So it's kind of, it's not all doom and gloom, and we're not saying it is. It's a changing environment,
Yeah.
and it's managing that, isn't it, in a way that doesn't cost us the artists the earth just to do a gig or to subsidize that or to do that or to try and
But I think the music industry has always been about change, hasn't it? Really, it's always been about the new. It's only in recent years we've tended to look back more uh, to nostalgia and look back musically. If you go through the 60s, 70s, 80s, music was all about look forwards. Uh, but now there's maybe it's just because all the people who are into music are now my age that you tend to look back. But and also I think, I mean, I would say this, wouldn't I? Because I'm the age I am. I think a lot of the current pop music is all sounding very samey. But then it probably would to me. It's like my dad watching Tour de Pops with me as a kid, going, "Oh, it all sounds the same. They've all got long hair. They can't tell if they're girls or boys." And you got to be careful that you don't fall into that syndrome yourself, I think sometimes. But a lot of the music on One Extra or whatever isn't supposed to be for me. And so a lot of people get wound up about Radio One or whatever and say, oh, they're not playing music for you. They're playing music for young people. Um, and we can't pretend that we are. We like to try and pretend that we are, but we're not.
I'm still pretending, Paul. It gets harder every day.
Sure. I used to bluff myself that I could pass as a student if I was at uni. But no, those not anymore, I don't think.
You've got great hair though, so it's like,
I still have hair, that's what you...
well, you've got great hair, I'm a little jealous of the hair, but let's not go there. Let's not go there. So, I mean, do you think it's viably financial, like to gig regularly? I mean, it's like with, there's different ways of gigging, isn't there? There's the door split. I mean, selling tickets is kind of tricky. Like, how are you going to manage that with the new band?
Well, if I hadn't had a long career in the BBC, I don't think I would be able to afford it. Certainly, the startup costs have been huge. Getting a website, getting the first album done, just generally getting a band off the ground, hiring a studio when you've had no income. So that's very difficult. And I'm fortunate enough to be in the position where that's been possible. I want it back. The band's got to start earning money, and then I will get that back. But there are fewer gigs you do now where you get a guarantee. Um, we've had some lately. It's been a guarantee or a door split. But that's not as common as it used to be. The door split is much more common. But for that, I want to see the venue having done some actual promotion. If they're going to want to take some of the money, I want to see that they've actually done some work. They can't expect that every band, say you're a band in Hampshire, like you're saying earlier, you do gig in Scotland, but the venue's going to say, well, your fans haven't come. He said, well, how do you think that's going to work? You've got to promote to your local people. But it's also, you get people saying, oh, I'm not going to come. I don't know if I like the music. I haven't heard the music. I said, well, if you come a second time, you will. You'll know the music then. So
Okay.
sometimes, but also you get somebody bringing their, as we did with Catfish, young daughter along to the program, like an 18-year-old girl came along. You could obviously tell she was being dragged in, and she was looking down at her phone. But by the end, she was really into it. And she came up to us afterwards and she said, I had no idea I was going to like that.
That's so
So,
cool.
yeah, but you've got to get them in the door. So that's the tricky part. But yeah, but if you are a parent or grandparent coming to see us, and let's face it, a lot of them are, uh, bring your niece, bring your young cousins, whatever, bring your son. If you, if this, you come once, if you like it, maybe come again. I think because that's the opposite of the network we have going. The audience network is a network of friends and people who know each other as well. So I like to think a couple of them could at least bring a younger person with them, and like bring your daughter to work day. Yeah, we used to
It
have at the BBC.
it does help, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
helped with us, happened the other Tuesday, and I'm just like, wow, you're young. Thanks for coming.
Well, so we used to say with Catfish, I'd say to Matt, "Is there anybody out there?" And he poked around the curtain. He said, "Yeah, there's 100 old blokes out there." And I said, "Well, put it this way: 100 people have come to see us. I
Which
don't
is
mind.
amazing.
Yeah, so I'll take that. But yeah, but we can't kid ourselves that the audience we are talking about is at the older end of the spectrum.
Mm.
But God bless them; they have disposable income.
Yeah, and they are amazing people and lovely people. I just say it's kind of built a community all of its own. But
Yeah.
you run a respected radio show. You've worked for the BBC. Or, it's just so radio and podcasts, streaming live. Can they help rebuild audiences going to live gigs? Do you think could they have a
Well,
more of
it's
a
interesting. Everybody tries to kill radio. Video killed the radio star, but that's not the case. Radio is more and more popular. Well, the figures are standing up in a way that they aren't on television. Um, but it's changing. People want to listen to what they want to listen to when they want to listen to it. So the BBC, amongst many other people, have gone big time into podcasts. So yeah, I still want to hear Melvin Bragg, doing it in our time. But I want to hear it when I want to hear it, not at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning or
mm,
whatever the thing is. I was just reading about one of my favorite podcasts is The Rest is History. And I was reading in the Guardian this morning that they have 15 million downloads a month. That's a history
wow.
podcast. Just two blokes talking about history. So audio is important to a lot of people, in as it always was, but in different ways. And I find with my radio show, yeah, the audience is not 15 million people like it was on Radio 2, but it's not background. People have had
Mm,
to come and find the radio show or find your podcast, and that makes them dedicated and interesting listeners, and they're worth more than a casual observer with it on in the background to me anytime. And I'll keep getting emails or messages from people saying, "Oh, I'll listen to your show again. You've cost me another 50 quid in albums. Will you stop playing these things?" And because I play a lot of new music on there.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm always trying to find new stuff. There's lots of blues radio shows that will play Muddy Waters all day long. I love that too. But I can't help Muddy Waters. I can help a younger band, newer band get better known. And so that's what I try and do on the radio show.
Where can people find your radio show, Paul, if they like don't even know about it?
You can listen to it live on a Sunday. Well, I don't do it live, it's recorded, but it goes out on a Sunday lunchtime, midday on bluesradiouk.com. But the easiest way is often just to go on Mixcloud and follow me on there, and you'll just get a notification every time a new show's up there, which is once a week.
Brilliant. Well, I hope people
Again,
do
you can
look
listen
at
to it
that.
on your dog walk or wherever you are,
Well, exactly, because if they're like me, I don't like to be left alone with the noises in my own head. So I something has to be in my ears all the time. Don't want to let those voices in, Paul. Do you know what I mean? It's never going to be good. Really isn't. And you mentioned something there, which was very interesting as well, about radio's keeping its figures, but it's. I'm trying to remember what you said because my little brain is really, really bad. But you've got, that accessibility of the podcast. So most radio shows now you can go and revisit and you can go back,
Yeah.
listen to. It is on demand, that it's where it's at, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, ever more so. And, I think maybe 10 years' time, there won't be a television schedule. They're just, it'll just be. I mean, the BBC iPlayer is an incredible thing, and it was also the first, and it's still a very, very good platform. It's what the others have all learned from, apart from ITVX, which is a terrible,
It
terrible app.
really is.
Yeah, and they could learn a lot. But it might be that the British public service broadcasters, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, 5, maybe at some time need to get together and have one platform, like a terrestrial TV or public service TV platform. Because a lot of things like our other son James watched Peaky Blinders, but he saw it on Netflix. No idea that it was a BBC show. That didn't matter to him at all. So that's a BBC show. Oh, is it? Oh, it was on Netflix. It's also on the iPlayer. But in a way, it's not gonna matter somehow where you find it. Uh, that's the thing. And they are inquisitive. I remember Matt he would discover all of a sudden one day he would discover Led Zeppelin. And I thought, well, this is great. They don't care where it's come from. They find it and they like it. And then he would start that journey that I did when I discovered Led Zeppelin or Little Feat in the early 70s. This is great music. I wonder where they get that from. And you work your way back to the blues greats. Trouble is now there's another 60 years, 50 years you've got to work your way back through to get to the original stuff. But all that stuff in between, all that melting pot of influences, like I was talking about earlier, that's just helped the music survive. So you can listen to the blues and people like Hoosier now, or somebody like that. Moby, if you go back into the 80s, 90s.
Absolutely.
All these things, they've soaked it all up. Like I was saying, Fantastic Negrito, if you've ever seen him live, I mean, he just reminds me of Prince a huge amount in Sound and Woody. He's so amazing on stage. Should be better known, but perhaps he's artistically happy. Yeah, so I hope he is.
Yeah, there's
Um,
a lot to be said for that, isn't there, Paul?
yeah, yeah. I mean, not everybody's going to be an Adele or that level of. I mean, I'm obviously I don't know. I've never been that rich and famous, but I think it brings as many problems as it solves. Um, and I'd be happy just continue to play my music to whoever wants to listen to it. Really.
Absolutely. Well, it's just like a bit of a wrap up. I mean, if you could give one piece of advice to an emerging blues rock, I mean, we're going to stick to this sort of area, and how they could reach audiences right now, what would it be? What would you kind of number one bit of advice be for them?
Well, my one bit of advice to Matt, when he said to me, I want to be a guitar player when I grow up, I said to him, you can't do both.
So true.
In a way, being a musician is like being a permanent child. Um, um, I don't know, sing your blues, speak your truth, I think really in what you write. And if it's true and it's meaningful, it'll latch on to people. The thing I love the most is when somebody comes up to me after a gig and says, I love the words to that song, because I spend a long time on the lyrics and what I'm trying to say with them. And if that's when you know you've connected. People can whistle a melody but not hear any of the words. And if they do, you really hit home. So I mean, it's so hard to keep going, but I think you have to really. But again, be diverse. I think that's the only way to survive. Get what training you can. Amazing places like ACM in Guildford and BIM, all these colleges now, which weren't there when I started out. They're so helpful, not only in teaching you musical skills, but in business skills, recording skills. Just try and know how to do that, really. Have a passing knowledge of Logic or Pro Tools, which is what I use. Even if you don't make an album out of it, you can make your own demos from it. And it's all there for you now. It's so much cheaper than it was when we were that age, where you'd have to save up money for even for an 8-track studio or somewhere for a day. It's there at your fingertips, but you've got to know what you're saying. Figure out what you're saying. The technology is all there to help you, sure, but you've got to know what you're saying, what you're trying to communicate musically. And that's it for me, really, to be true to yourself.
Absolutely. You've there's no real loser in that. If you're true to yourself, no one's listening. It's okay because you've still been true to yourself.
It's better if people are listening, but
It's better if
it
people
shouldn't
are.
stop you if they're not. It shouldn't stop you if they're not.
It really shouldn't, but at least, you've produced something that you're happy with and that you're proud of. And
Yeah.
that's the important thing, isn't it? So tell us
Well, if
again
you're
when
not
this.
happy and if you're not happy with it, how do you expect anybody else to be?
Absolutely.
You've got to be happy and proud with what you've done.
Absolutely. So when is this album out again, Paul?
11th October, Burning Rope, the band, and that's what the album's going to be called as well, just to get people to know the name more. The 11th October, come and see us. If you're in Surrey, Cranley Arts Centre, or you can pre-order from burningrope.co.uk.
Fantastic. And I'm sure they've all got their social media and whatnot. So please
Yeah.
go and see them, folks. You won't be disappointed. It'll be fab. Thank you so much, Paul. You've been amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you, Rebecca. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. Thank you so much, Paul. That was amazing. It's great to see you carrying on with original music, and I wish you all the very best with the band and the new album. Folks, look out for it. So you will be actually hearing from Colin Speller next week when he gives me his views on the issues from his perspective as manager of our business. Thank you for listening and or watching. I'll see you next week.